After 20 years of building together through dust, deadlines, and damn good ideas, Pace and Adam invite you to join them for honest conversations about the home building world. Welcome to Build Connected, where experience meets insight, powered by Diamond Home Restoration.
Welcome back to Build Connected. Whoa, we got an outdoor participant up in Lake Tahoe. Welcome, Adam.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's vacation life is the good life.
Is that a redwood or is that a sequoia behind you? What is that?
Now this one is they call this lodgepole. We call this tree we've named the mothership. It's like
Okay,
the focal point of the backyard. These are just behind me are pines, kind of like weeds. Some
I
of those need
see.
to come down. You can see we've got a dead one. That I'm gonna bust out the chainsaw next year.
Like I
Uh,
think that should be happening on camera today. You need to thin out that dead herd.
This is vacation time. This is no
Oh,
time for work or funny business.
now I
I'm going
understand. I
I'm going to the lake. I'm going to jump in Lake Tahoe. It's going to be nice.
Okay, that sounds fair. Well, let's get to today's business. What are we going to talk about today?
Today's product of the day is railing, and a particular railing. Whew, I'm having trouble getting the words out. Vacation. I'm really on
Mushy
the
brain.
slow I'm on the slow train here. But today we're going to talk about Hogwire Railing and a company named Wild Hog. I think it's Wild Hog Products. They make a particular brand of Hogwire railing, and it's something that we've used on some projects. And I'm kind of talking about it for a couple reasons. One, we love the product. It's cost effective, and you can see I've got it behind me right now on my railing. So you know, like I said, it's a good cost effective approach. Some people might want a more fancy railing, maybe they want cable rail or steel or metal, and there's kits out there that are cost effective, but price per lineal foot for this stuff is great. And I think, we don't talk about price a lot, but I think, if you find this stuff online, each Hogwire panel, a 3 foot by 6 foot panel is $100. And I think that's for most markets, to be honest. But labor is different in other markets. I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, uh, Wild Hog, not only do they make these railing material, this hog wire material, you can get it in black, you can get it in like a silver stainless color. You can get 3x6, 3x7, 3x8 panels. I think maybe it's just 3x6 and 3x8. And then they make 5 foot by 6, 5 foot by 8 for your staircase handrails, because those are different heights. And the thing that I like about this, and I didn't do it on my house, but what I would do differently is they make a U channel. It's a piece of steel that's the shape of a U, and that goes around the perimeter of your hog wire, and it locks your hog wire in. What I've done here is I've used wood as stops on either side, and over time, the wood wears out and it moves a little bit. The U channel is really the best approach. There's a code issue too that you have when you're doing railing work. It needs to withstand a certain amount of force, in case someone falls or trips into the railing, and that U channel is designed to withstand that force. So really great product, cost effective, looks good. They do make other things. This Wild Hog company, I think they do pergola kits. They have I think 2 or 3 other products, but we've used this a lot. We'll continue to use it. And if you're looking to do some railing work on your house and maybe you're not looking to spend a ton of money, this is a great solution.
I love using the hog wire. Just taking a look at your background there, if you look over, yeah, like on that far guardrail, I mean, it virtually disappears, right? So if you're trying to capture the view, it's a great product. If I look to your right, more in the forefront of the picture, you can see the grid, but it's a really contemporary look that opens up the view. And like you said, it's super cost effective. We find ourselves more and more, like 10 years ago, I don't think you and I had ever used it really, but from that point on, we've been using it more and more. When you compare it with, say, like a glass railing or a cable rail, it's just much more approachable financially. So yeah, love it, love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Pace, kick us off on your topic today.
Well, the last few weeks, last couple of weeks, we've been talking about California regulation, and that's both Title 24 and Cal Green. And I'm a stick in the mud, whatever. I get it. I've been kind of harping on it and the process, the layer it creates on the journey to get a building permit. I want to kind of look at it from the other side of the coin today, and what I mean by that is, uh, you know, I started off saying that we are fully supportive of the mission, I think, of these initiatives. And I want to kind of double down on that. We are all about making our buildings more efficient. And by more efficient, I ultimately mean using less energy. As we move forward in the future, it's a big issue. So I think that the heart is in the right place, and you and I, as we build, we're trying to build more and more efficient houses. A more efficient house is also a house that leads to less maintenance. So, the long-term cost of it, it also makes a lot of sense. And so, like I said, California has saved billions over the years with these initiatives. And I want those savings to continue. I want us to keep getting better and better. And I'm going to focus maybe on just windows today and how the approach that we're talking about can fall into that sort of pattern. And I think you brought up something earlier that is worth comparing it with, right? The LED light bulb. So it's a very similar notion, right? Some years back, California mandated that you can no longer use incandescent lights. Um, for us, it started in the kitchen and the bathroom, I believe, and then it spread to the whole house. But we, in our market, we no longer could buy an incandescent bulb, right? You could then, buy them like nationally, say on an Amazon, what have you. But we were not allowed to use that product. So I think having a similar tough prescriptive approach for, say, like a window, makes a lot of sense. And I think something like that, it needs to happen on a national level, right? Just because you can buy, there's distributors for our building products nationally, and a lot of the stuff we buy comes from all over. So having just a goal as a nation of, hey, we're going to build better and more efficient, and that means you can no longer buy this single pane window or this crappy window, right? Everybody's going to buy like a higher standard window. I think that's the general idea or approach to how you toughen the prescriptive method while at the same time increasing the performance of our homes.
And again,
Uh,
as prescriptive, you're just referring to a set method. That's really what we're saying.
a set method, and to compare that now, I'm gonna focus on Windows again. Let's say that we make a metric, and it says something like, okay, if you have a wall and there's less than 50% glass, meaning windows in that wall, then you can follow the prescriptive method. However, if you go over that 50% glass, now you are a special case, and we have to look at the performance of that wall. And that means, you need to use specialized windows and insulation. Um, but if you fall into that sort of normal category of less than 50%, and I'm making up the number 50%, just because it's an easy one to talk about, then you can just go ahead and buy off the shelf windows that meet the prescriptive code. I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I really like that. I we talk about why we do this podcast, and part of it is to see if there's a possibility to make a difference. Hopefully, someone out there is listening, or eventually will see this, and maybe that conversation takes place. And you would think it is taking place because it makes sense. But yeah, I think that's a great approach, Pace.
Yeah, I mean, longer term though, I mean, of course, we want our buildings to get tighter and tighter. We want them to last longer and longer. So this idea of building better, it's at the heart, I think, of who we are as a company, and I think it's where the building industry has shown that it's headed. So I'm all for initiatives as long as they don't grind the process to a halt. And I think that, that layer of process that we've been talking about is where the real problem is. So if we can focus on the big picture and get past the roadblocks that exist today in California in the process, I think that the industry and us as a country will be in a much better place. So I kind of want to wrap up the regulation there. I mean, I'm sure in the future we're going to come back to it and continue to kind of pick away at different aspects of it. But for today, I think that's kind of a positive way to tie things together. All right, Adam, you're gonna talk about something fun that we've got going on a project right now.
Yeah, this is the part of the segment where we talk about something interesting or fun that's going on in a project, and I'm going to kind of tie this into the product that we talked about. So we have a project right now. It's a large project. There's a lot of foundation and pier work going on, and we've really done a lot of demo. And as a homeowner who is not used to seeing this kind of thing, it can be daunting when you see all of this happening around you. Everything is apart. It's in pieces. And it's really when things start to come together where I think homeowners kind of see the light and they get excited. We talked about in the past episode or episodes about the discovery phase, and we're just climbing out of that discovery phase right now. And part of what we've come across is some stuff that really needs attention. And we've had to bring the structural engineer out to look at some of this stuff, and he's made some strong recommendations on some of these things that we've discovered, and we've presented these to the client. And it's tough, right? As a client, as a homeowner, you have a budget in mind, and things are going to come up, but it can be a tough pill to swallow sometimes. And I think that, in this case on our project, we're kind of at a threshold perhaps on budget. And this is where us as a contractor, we really have to do our best to be cost conscious of what's coming down the pipe on the rest of this project. So, for example, I think one of the things that's going to be interesting on this job is Pace and I getting creative. And we find ourselves doing this on most jobs, right? Where can we kind of keep the same aesthetic and quality, but be creative with coming up with other solutions that are cost effective. And for this one, we're doing a lot of deck work, which are going to require almost 150 lineal feet of railing. And these railings can be quite expensive. The initial approach might be something kind of fancy. Maybe it's glass, which is kind of your highest and most expensive kind of railing, aside from some custom work. Then you get into kind of cable rail or horizontal bars, that sort of stuff. That stuff is expensive. And although it might be something that someone might want on their project, for this particular job, Pace and I, we really feel that something like this Hogwire that we've talked about is really a great cost-effective approach. So, I think the point of this story is to bring up this cost-conscious yet beautiful railing detail that the homeowners are going to like, and that can ultimately save them money as we move forward, because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And hopefully there's nothing else that we discover. Like I said, we're almost out of this discovery phase. We have a bit more digging to do. You never know what you find under the ground. We don't presume that there's going to be any indication of these things. But again, moving forward, being smart and wise about where the dollars go.
Yeah, I think sometimes you've got cost overruns early, and we do our best to make up for them down the road. You mentioned like a desired budget or a budget in mind. I think you said, sometimes you hit a limit to a budget, right? It's just whatever you want to do. There's just no money beyond a certain point, and so being mindful of that edge, I think, is important. There's always recommendations or desires, but sometimes you really need to make wise decisions. And sometimes you can spend a bunch of money and then have to change change courses. I think ultimately, Adam, that's what you're talking about. You're kind of talking about value, and I think that tying back to the Hogwire idea, even though there might have been something in mind earlier that might have been a little bit pricier, this might be a great place where we can make a different choice, keep a similar look, and save a couple of bucks. So I think that it's a really nice tie-in that you did there with the early product and something that we're facing right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to talk about stuff that's fun and exciting on things that are going on in projects, but I think it's going to be important for us to discuss the challenges of these projects as well. And I want to talk about that in addition to, I guess that falls in the category of interesting. I think people are interested in understanding the challenges and pitfalls, and I think we're going to introduce some more of that into these segments.
I think that's what people really want to hear about. I think as a homeowner, you're always worried about these pitfalls and what happens if, fill in the blank. So I think talking about like how you course correct, how you get back on budget, those are things that people really want to hear about. And I think we're going to be talking about that a lot in the future. But you and I mean, we always say that for us to succeed as a company, if we have a smiling client at the end of the project, right, we're going to thrive. It's all about that. And you get to that place by being open and honest, right? By making choices and informing clients along the way so that they can make good decisions. If we get away from that, um, like our clients feel it, right? So like our that transparency that you and I are always talking about, it goes so far in helping clients make good decisions, feel integral to the project, and yeah, I mean it's at the heart of what we do, and I think that as long as we keep doing that, we're going to have smiling clients.
No doubt.
All right, so what's on the agenda vacation wise for the rest of the day?
Ooh, today is a lake day. We're gonna go down to the lake. Yeah, do it floating around on the lake. We floated the Truckee River a couple days ago, and then I have a friend that's gonna take us out on a boat tomorrow. I
Now,
think they
could you
say that,
swim? Could you free dive all the way down to the bottom of your lake?
yeah, 1,600 feet, I think, is the deepest part of Lake Tahoe.
You got
Pretty
that.
impressive.
I think it's worth saying that you have a non-compliant baseball cap on today, and that's enough said.
And why? Why are you saying that?
You're too old to be wearing that flat brim.
This is a nice hat. I'm trying to fit in with the kids, with the
Yep,
youngsters.
you're trying.
Hey, my wife likes it, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. All right. Well, we're going to see you next week, also on vacation.
Yeah, maybe. I'm gonna try and stay here as long as possible. That'd be nice.
Interesting. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us again. Always fun talking. I'm Pace.
And I'm Adam.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Build Connected. For more stories, insights, and ideas, visit diamondhomerestoration.com or find us on Instagram and LinkedIn. We'll be back next week. We hope you will too.